one of the ways that evolution seems to unfold is that there has to be, everything comes in threes. There's threes. And one of the ways that we know that the East and West are kind of moving into this, and we live in a time right now where we can start to talk about things like chakras or energy centers and not be scandalized, say, in the West. But there are three major structures that structure the capacity for consciousness to happen through the human. And this is a foundational energy. It's like you can think of it as a strength. It's a constant, it's pretty much a constant just flow, like an undulation, and it's the foundation of all the other types. If we were to give this a color, it would correspond to red. Okay. So you might think of when we astronomers say, or not we, but when we look at astronomy, we call it the red effect, is when something is moving away because it's this slow thing. When we see a rainbow, the very first color we see is red because it's slower, and then everything else is divisible. It's everything else is derivative of this strengthening thing. So that's sort of a foundational energy, okay, that's undulating. The next one is yellow. And then the third one is blue. So we have red, yellow, and blue are these primary colors that are all colors, but they're all distinct in the sense that yellow is not really connected to blue or red, and red, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, what properties might we give these three? All right, so like I said before, the red is the foundational piece. The yellow takes that foundational piece, and then the property of the domain of the yellow, you might say, is relatedness. The many.
Okay.
The many. So from a human perspective, we could call it society or the social. All right. So this is the one would be the red, the many is the yellow, and then the blue is again moving towards wanting again. So the domain of the blue is co-creatorship. And what I mean by that is at the human level, the blue the blue energy center would represent the human who has integrated the society of the different parts of themselves, if you will, because you know the shadow side, the light side and all, and integrated to such a degree that they have developed into this blue bandwidth of consciousness where they are actively stewarding creation, that they have a sense in themselves that they are God's boots on the ground. What Teresa of Avila says, no longer I, but Christ who lives within me. No, that was Paul. Sorry. Teresa of Avila said, Christ has no body now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which he sees compassion on the world. You know, like that the power of that, right? Mother Teresa having said, I see myself as God's pen through which God writes a love letter to the world. You know? And then you obviously have talked about your own stepping into your own capacity to create wholeness that then is ingested energetically by others who then go and incarnate that wholeness in their lives. Co-creatorship, you understand? But in order to get to that co-creatorship piece, that Blu-ray, you do have to do a lot of integration. And so it's always and everywhere true, it seems, that whatever arises must converge. So we have the one red ray arising, the manyness arising, the yellow ray is the manyness arising, and then in the blue it's converging back inside a person to where they are now feeling almost an avatar of God. You know, the sense of God is Christ, as Paul said, yes, no longer I, but Christ who lives within me is doing this, the mind of Christ. All right, so that begins at the blue.
Okay.
Now, what happens is that what do you have when you have red and yellow together?
Red and yellow make green?
Orange.
Orange. I was trying to think of that old Ziploc.
That's green and blue.
Green and blue, yeah.
But red and... No. Green and... yellow and blue make green. But so that's... but you get the sense, though, that there's a secondary something that happens.
Yeah.
So when you get the foundational place of the strengthening ray, the foundation ray, orange or red, okay, and then you have yellow here, then together there's these edges, right, and it creates a new gestalt. It's a new wholeness. This is the two hydrogens and one oxygen becoming one complex. A water molecule. Now, what is that orange? Well, that orange is the individual sense of the self. That is your sense of your beingness. This is my Dougness, if you will. Okay. But notice, though, it is, you could say the red would be the embodiment, you know, your body without your sense of yourself, just, you know, the raw, the raw flesh and bones.
Yeah, the meat.
Okay. The meat. Then remember the social self. We're born into the family. We're born into the yellow ray.
Okay.
Our culture, Americans, Texas, you know, all of this stuff, religious, Christianity, whatever it is, you're born into this social level. That's the yellow.
Yeah. But
the two blend, and so the sense of who you are is your awakening into how do you navigate the sense of self between I am incarnated here in this particular body, and then I'm also incarnated inside concentric circles of my environment that are ever expanding into larger, you know, macro holons, if you will, you know. And how do I negotiate who I am?
Yeah.
All right. And most humans never learn how to negotiate that very well. And so the orange sense of who I am, to know yourself, as Socrates says, is the whole of the law, to know yourself. You know, to know myself, that is the great sort of prime directive that humans are given, is who are you? As you say, getting your being right, you know?
Yeah.
Now, we have the blue still up here.
Yeah.
So we have yellow and blue. Well, what's the gestalt between the yellow and blue that emerges? It's green. Green is the gestalt that emerges from the relationship between yellow and blue. And green is this sense of transcending and including the society, having a really strong sense of self, a robust sense of your incarnation. Not that we have to have robust bodies, but it's a sense that I am here in this body and I deserve to take up space because I'm emerging from nature, you know? And when we start moving into the green, it's where we transcend and include all of the lessons below of the lower chakra triad, and we receive them. So the green is kind of a receiving station. It's the capacity to allow love, as you were saying earlier, the nature of love, to allow love and understanding to then inform our way of seeing. So it would be like the way that I understand green ray living, if you will, is let's say you see somebody who you have an immediate sort of triggered response because of you're seeing a lot of blockages in them, you're seeing a lot of resistance, and maybe their reaction to you, they can't see it. It seems almost like righteousness, and they want to be right.
Yeah.
They want to be correct. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, let's say in that moment, you are immediately brought back into your lower chakra, because the lower chakra is going to feel threatened when you're receiving the threat energetically. You're going to be threatened as to, am I going to lose myself over this? Am I going to be almost like energetically infringed upon, to where I have to defend? So should I go on the offense? And then also, what social boundaries are being crossed, or in what ways don't like certain parts of my social environment, and she represents it. Regardless, it's going to be, the focus is going to be back on that orange ray. Who are you, and are you going to survive? That's why it's triggered.
Okay.
But a robust one that you have a stronger sense of yourself, and informed by your desire to really know yourself, you will receive the catalyst of this person's presence coming into you as the opportunity to practice green ray living. And it is, can I see them, even if I don't like how they are behaving,
right,
and even if I see perhaps where it's coming from, can I receive this catalyst as an opportunity to see, I'm just going to say to him, let's say, see him from a 360 view. How did he get here? What do I know about his history, and maybe what can I suspect about it? Because we don't arrive at, say, adulthood with this kind of attitude, in a vacuum. And can I appreciate, almost like the way I like to see it is, I'm in a massive room, empty room. I like to see it as green walls and white marble floor. I'm a visual person, like white marble, shiny, beautiful. And on the green walls, like there's a projection of when he was 1 year old, 2, like all the way around. And I can see, like, in the Omni theaters, these IMAX theaters, like you can almost see all the way around. It's like that. And I'm seeing all the way around. This is how, this injury here. This was affirmed here. This is the insecurity. And I'm all of that is, now I'm seeing them right here in front of me. I understand why they're being this way. And I love him because he's made in the image and likeness of God. We are all ontologically the image of God. Our likeness is our choice, in the sense that we have the potential to match our image. It doesn't mean that it's always happening. Now, what happens when you're in the green ray is you immediately have access to the blue. So imagine in our room again, huge room, green walls, marble floor, but now you see way on the other side of this room a door. It's like a beautiful blue door. So you do have to walk across. There's a little bit of an effort. You have to desire to go into the door. It's not like an elevator takes you. You have to walk across this green room. And the whole time, by the way, as you're walking across, you might feel resistance to keep going, because the pull of the gravity of the lower chakra triads it's a gravity. It's like trying to ride your bike in 50 mile an hour wind. You got to really want it, because that he might be triggering you, and you might want to go and defend yourself, and transmit the negativity as opposed to transform it. So you have to continually surrender to the fact that I'm loving this person and seeing this person. And the technique, of course, Rohr talks about this, is maybe envision you're holding this person almost like a father to a young child, that their head is against your heart, and you're just holding them. Now, when you get into the blue, that door, you open it up, there you have the capacity for externalizing that which is received in the green room. The blue room is the externalization, the incarnation of what is gnosis-wise, lived experience, understood and received in the green room. So now I'm in the blue room and I get to forgive. It doesn't mean I don't set boundaries. Huh?
Yeah.
And the way that forgiveness is understood in the blue ray is 4 means beforehand. 4 means prior. Huh?
Right.
A priori.
Given beforehand. Yeah.
Given before is forgive.
Yeah.
And what am I giving? I am giving that person the dignity of them being a nodal point in this great, mysterious reality of union and unity. Yeah. That person is a child of the Creator, is a spark of the divine, and I'm giving him that dignity. He is my other self.
Yeah.
We're all cells and self.
Yeah.
In this larger capital S self, and he's my other self.
Yeah.
He is my cell in this larger body, huh?
Yeah.
And I'm giving him that dignity.
Yeah.
So if I do that, before he even, forgiveness is something you do give, but it's an attitude you give. I'm going to forbear is another one. I'm bearing the burden of your incapacity. Yeah, I'm looking at this guy. Yeah. Your incapacity to put your humanity and divinity together. You can't do that yet, and that's okay, because I was there too. I couldn't do it either. Right. But now I can. I'm doing it because I've done it inside myself. Yeah. I can bear the burden of my own paradoxes.
Yeah.
And am forgiven by God. I'm forgiven by reality because I've had that experience. So I'm going to give you that ahead of time. But do you see that is an intention?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't set boundaries.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't, from his perspective, even seem aggressive.
Yeah.
One can be assertive.
Yeah.
You know, aggression and passive aggression belongs in the domain of the lower chakras. But assertiveness and clear communication, even if it's robust, is gonna be the purview of the, if you will, born again person. And the born again person is someone who is beginning anew, fresh, vibrant in the green ray.
Yeah.
And then moving into the blue. So how does this sit with you? Does it make sense?
I think it does. I'm hearing it through language and references that I'm more familiar with.
Of course.
But yeah, it makes I feel like I was making connections, yeah, to, you know, you have this person who's behaving in a way that does not align with who they really are at their core.
Yeah.
And their behavior can obviously trigger in us similar reactions,
of
or
course.
in that lower level as you were describing, and we can learn to see it actually and empathize with them by recognizing, you know, they're unconscious of, they don't know yet that connection that we've talked about, and they've been through things that have shaped and programmed them, let's say, a certain way. And a simple way to say it is that like their non-love reactions or actions are really a call for love.
Amen.
And that's what green living is all about, is a loving, accepting, forgiving, understanding,
standing under.
Standing under, and love is the thing that actually transforms, not necessarily condemning them or criticizing them and telling them why they shouldn't behave that way or anything, but and yet we still are wise to set boundaries.
Wise like serpents, gentle as doves.
Yeah, and trusting. I said this before and resonated with it, and I've since been using, but letting love do what love does. And so trusting love to do what love does.
So one might say love's nature could be green ray in some ways, but love's doing is blue.
Yeah.
The doing is
Yes.
the co-creative aspect.
Right.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love what you just put it together in your own way. Something that I can see that you get it, and you've lived it out in your life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It makes sense. One question I had as you were describing that, and I think it probably connects with, because I thought that was pretty fascinating too. The last time you sent me how sound waves can impact it. So I'm wondering how the vibrations of sound also play into this dynamic with the energy colors that you've described.
Well, they're the same thing.
Okay.
They're the same thing, because energy is energy. So let's say the red ray energy, and we call it red because that is what our optical lens receives as red.
Oh, okay.
And that's just
how it interprets.
You could call it the accident of evolution. You know what I mean? I mean, we call it red because that is our perception.
Okay.
But really, it is just the phenomena of a certain kind of frequency of light.
Yeah.
Right. We see it as red, but it could be called, I don't know, zitzoot. We just happen to call it red. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It reminds me of how certain species don't see.
They don't see it
the
the
same color,
No.
or
Or see
certain lights,
and they see bigger. You got some that are seeing ultraviolet. These areas that we're blind to. Doesn't mean so.
Doesn't mean it's not here or there.
Perfectly
it's just
said.
We don't perceive it.
That's right. So we have these frequencies, and red then would be the frequency that is. I mean, the way I kind of see it is, let's say, red would be clay for an artist.
Okay.
It's the material, the raw material, and then let's say an artist is learning how to sculpt. Okay, and so they're learning from a tradition, maybe, and that tradition is the society, that's the school, and so we're talking yellow ray at that point. This, and then blue. So we have red, yellow, blue. Blue would be where the artist then using this clay, being informed by the society of how to operate this clay, now infusing their own imagination, is create something that didn't exist actually, but in the infinite array, extensive continuum of infinite possibility, of course it existed, but it existed as potential, and then as he or she is imagining what this art would be, that's bringing into from the potential into the probable, but it's still not yet manifest because it's a concept that person's working with.
Right.
And then as their hands are taking this raw material of the clay, this red ray, if you will, and then sculpting it according to their image and likeness energetically, it then exists at the final project as an entity in and of itself.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, a good artist will say, when someone says, well, what does that mean? A good artist will say, well, it means something to me, but actually the important thing is, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And you'll have art, and people talk about it all the time, and I've experienced it, music, art, same thing, where you end up developing a relationship of this song or this piece of thing that opens up something inside you and taps into your red, yellow, and blue.
So would you say that when you were talking about walking toward the blue door and the feeling the tension or the it's like wind coming and you're trying, you gotta want to go there, or even the trigger point, let's say so they're operating out of a lower chakra
and don't know it,
and so the waves of that energy, because I'm trying to think about how they, when you strum a G chord, it resonates with that. Would you say that's part of what we're feeling then with that trigger, is that it's hitting the lower chakra?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That is exactly right. But here's the thing that I'd like to nuance what you just said.
Yeah.
When you and I are operating from the lower chakra, from a place of reactivity, it's not going to be a nice D chord or something that is pristine and singular as, let's say, what we would see in the Western musical scale as a D or an E.
Okay.
Rather, it would be a non-harmonious collection of, let's say, the Om of the red and then something else of the orange and something else of the yellow, but it would all be detuned, and then the strumming of that would sound like chaos, and then it would be, instead of a rhythm, it's boom, 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 boom. That's why dealing with somebody who is perpetually, let's say, stuck in the closed energy loop of their lower chakras can be really confusing to someone who is in their green.
Yeah.
Because that person is sometimes really, really intense, triggering energy coming out really, really intense, and then there's a movement of, oh, I'm sorry, and I love you, and da-da-da-da, but it's really not love in the green sense. Yeah. It's love in the sense of, I need you to like me back, because my sense of codependency and dependency in knowing who I am is dependent 100% on you. So even love and seemingly compassionate behavior can, on somebody who's really intensely blocked, like maybe a sociopath or something like that, even then it's contrived as a manipulation and a possession, even if that person is not conscious of it. And so you, who is maybe somebody who's really working in the green and blue, will receive somebody else who's perpetually stuck in the lower chakras as the energy would be chaos and frenzied, a sense of urgency and a sense of needing to fix now. And there's a lot of ego there too, and they can't see this. And then what happens with the when you're in the green ray, and if you're really receiving like all of this information in here, you take it in, and through your capacity to allow them to be who they are, to not need to change them, desire for connection with them, surrender to our own desire to be right, and all of this stuff, we actually take in their negativity and then act like, these telephone wires that have these transformation boxes? And that, the wires are giving incredibly strong voltage that would burn out any household, right? So they go into these transformer boxes, and there they are regularized, made efficient, certain the amps are brought down, the voltage is brought down, and it brings it into a balance and harmony. And then it's safe for consumption, right? A green ray person who can stay there is receiving the, if you will, carbon dioxide of the person, and then giving off oxygen. You see what I'm saying?
But that's what I was going to ask.
It's an intentional place, so you have to be very intentional about it.
To stay there. And that's what I was wondering, if that, then when we emit that green ray energy, if that is the transforming, like that, they may not see it or experience it, but it has a way of influencing.
It'll be stuck on their aura. But usually what happens is they're not quite ready. They're longing for that green ray. They're not quite ready for it. But it's vis-a-vis your relationship with them that they can have what's introduced to them, a novel way of being, because they see it in you that, wow, this person, unlike 99% of people that I meet, is somehow, I feel a freshness there. I don't know why. And so then there's, all of a sudden it dawns on them that there's another way to live and embody this life, is not from a reactivity, but from a measured response that's informed by green love and understanding, and blue balance and wisdom and forbearing reality.
Is that how you would explain and say to these concepts, is how energy medicine where energy healing takes place too.
Yeah. I think it has all to do with understanding these kinds of things. And one argument, certainly not the most one scientists would say, but the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, prior to it being utilized for the pharaoh and all of this stuff, you have the queen's chamber and you have the king's chamber, and they're located in certain areas inside the pyramid. And the pyramid, we know, any kind of pyramid, we actually have studied that it is a funneling device. As much as like if you were to fill your tub and then pull the drain, and then you see this thing right here, that exactly the same thing except for what's called chi or ka, this energy that's always there. And a pyramid is actually a funneling device that takes what is always and everywhere present, but in pure potentiality. It's like the water you can't see, and then brings it into a funnel that increases its blending and rapidity until at the very end it's a singularity shooting up. But as you can see now, the positions of the different chambers, the queen and king, would be positioned so that that energy would hit at a certain level with a certain kind of intensity at a certain bandwidth. And in those particular chambers, you would have it's a kind of hospital where people would come in depending upon what their mind, body, spirit needed. And then there would be, we would call them oracles, but they could easily be seen as like physicians.
Yeah.
That would have intelligence. They're incarnated, they're beings, they're humans, to know and how to operate these kinds of spiritual technologies, say, and then help a person change their energetic configuration. But the time of the pyramids, like this kind of training isn't really necessary, because you know where it's found today? It's found in really, really good spiritual places like where you work. It's found in counseling. It's found in good conversations, because a person who is a blue ray, even indigo ray, which is the next level outside of blue, a person who is operating on that is a portable pyramid. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So you are a portable pyramid when you are able to sit with somebody and you are then transmitting all of these energies and all the things that would take place in those particular chambers. You're doing that with your incarnated embodiment intentions.
That's good.
And we call that, good pastoring.
That's awesome.